My honor to be here, and it's not lost on me that this morning was spent with all PRRS and Serco all the time, and now I feel like I'm kind of an outlier coming up here talking about the people side of things. As Oliver mentioned, I've been a swine veterinarian for 40 years. The first half of my career, I was dedicated to animal health, to pig health. But the last 20 years, my focus has been on unlocking the potential with people. I'm not exactly what you would call a people person. My focus is on results. My focus is on, did we hit the target? My focus has always been on getting things done. And I realized 20 years ago, I was becoming very, very frustrated because I felt like people were limiting my ability to get things done. And so I transitioned. And I had the belief that there were better ways to deal with people than what I was currently doing. And so that's been my quest for the last 20 years, is to come up with those ways to better handle people so that we can get the results, so that we can hit the targets, and so that we can get things done. And so I'd like to welcome you on my journey for the past 30 years of working on how to develop the potential within people. The jukebox concept is brand new to me. And it seems like every speaker's got a little different way of introducing their jukebox topics. I'm just going to lay them out right off the bat. If you're interested in what I'm talking about, this is an opportunity to delve a little deeper with these three topics. The first one, no one becomes an effective leader by accident. We don't become an effective leader by chance. We become an effective leader by choice. It's not due to luck. It's due to work. And I'll cover some strategies as to how that takes place. Overcoming apathy. Apathy in the workforce, apathy in an individual is a learned response. People don't join companies on their first day and they're apathetic. Think about real quick, if you're married, what was it like when you were first married? You weren't apathetic, right? Been married 46 years. Still so grateful that she said yes to my question 47 years ago. When I got accepted to vet school, there was no apathy. I was excited to get in. Apathy is a learned response, but it's also a really, really contagious situation that will virtually destroy a workplace. We'll talk about how to present it, what it looks like, and how to overcome it. And then steps involved in becoming a better leader. But a big part of that 20 years was trying to associate myself with the absolute most successful leaders that I could. And this last jukebox topic is me modeling them and what I've taken back away from them in terms of how did they become so successful. I want to start with leadership. And I think leadership is the key relative to realizing that potential with people. And it's the art of realizing or releasing that human talent and potential that individuals have. And by talent, I mean we're all naturally wired. What comes natural to us, what we want for our behavior is a matter of how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. And one of the big things with leadership is getting to know our people well enough so that we can release that and that we can get the best out of our people. The best leaders that I have ever seen use their position to better the people that report to them, not the other way around. I've seen some leaders that use their position and they use the people in order to increase their ability to be promoted. But the very best leaders use their position of leadership, their position of responsibility, to better the people that report to them. And then influence is huge in terms of leadership. And influence is having the ability to get people to do things differently than they've been doing them in the past. It's also the ability to get people to do things that they're not currently doing. The second one's a little easier than the first one. The more challenging one is getting people to do things differently. My observation from this morning, some of those strategies, some of those plans may be different than what the employees on your farm have been doing. That's leadership's responsibility to make the case as to how a change in behavior or a change in action will result in what we need for the farm. I'm going to combine the first two comments. I get a kick out of when I'm asked to talk, they said, we think we need to introduce the soft skill of leadership to the group. There's nothing soft. For those of you that have been in leadership a while, been in management and been involved with people, there's nothing soft about it, right? I would argue that it's a full contact sport, that we need to get in the arena to release that talent. We need to be beside them, not watching them. We need to be beside them. And then I have people that say, well, I understand how the technical aspects that we've been covering in this meeting, for example, result or allow our results to improve. I promise you, the work that we do with people also has a tremendous impact on the results that we have and expect within our company. I spent the last 2 days here working with a group of swine veterinarians on leadership. I think they would tell you I used this phrase at least a dozen, maybe 24 times. That as leaders, our expectations have got to be made crystal clear. I cannot hit the target that represents your expectations of me if I don't know what it looks like. I cannot hit the target in terms of what your expectations are of me if you keep moving it. Gallup has done research where they've interviewed over 18 million people, asking them, do you have a clear understanding of what's expected of you at work? And it's a yes or no response, right? And it's not what management says, it's what I say as a worker. 18 million people and 39% say they do have a clear understanding of what's expected of them at work. Which leads me to be concerned, what about the other 61%? If I don't have an understanding of what your expectations are of me, I'm gonna be pretty anxious. And that's probably where I'm gonna bump into apathy also. This is huge, that your reports have a clear understanding of what you expect from them. You never have to lower those expectations, but I have to know what the expectations are in order for me to have any shot of meeting them. So if we're talking about realizing the potential of people, let's go back to the beginning. When we hire somebody, when we bring them into our company, what does the onboarding process look like? I borrowed this first analogy from an individual who is a cattle veterinarian, who works with some of the largest feedlots in the United States. And I watched him give a presentation, and he said the way we receive our cattle needs to be the equivalent of a 5-star resort. And then he went through all the steps in terms of those cattle are tired. They've been on a semi traveling for hours and hours. The last thing we want to do is put them through a processing of putting them through the chute, vaccinating them. They need rest. They need fresh water. They need a nutrient-based diet that will sit well with them and that they want to eat. I mentioned I've been here since Saturday. This place reminds me of a 5-star resort in that I don't think I can take 10 steps that somebody isn't asking me if they can help. I didn't go eat lunch. I was checking out the stage while you guys were eating lunch, and an employee came in and said, "Sir, are you okay?" I am. And she just kind of acknowledges what I'm doing. I said, I don't eat lunch. I want to check out the stage. She said, "Okay, I was just concerned about you. Are you okay?" Now, Since Saturday, they've been taking care of me, but I still had the job to do the last 2 days, right? I still got the job to do today to meet the expectations that are held, but I feel like I had somebody that was looking out for me, somebody that was concerned about my well-being. Had nothing to do with being able to do my job. That's my expectations. But we want to provide a 5-star resort so they feel like they want to come back the next day, right? The ever-increasing number of research that shows people are making the decision as to whether this is a position they want to stay in sooner and sooner relative to when they start the job. I really recommend the people I work with, they don't start the new people on a Monday. Monday's typically the most chaotic day we've got of the week, right? And now we want to introduce new people. Start them later in the week. I think there's a couple benefits. Starting them later in the week, they don't have a full week to go before there's a weekend that they can take a little break. But let's have our focus on them. And I put down, make them feel welcome to the point that they tell their family. Make sure somebody acknowledges that they're there. I've seen places that have flat screens up in the office area, and it's welcome so-and-so. If they don't have that, I've seen signs on the showers with the person's name saying, "We're glad you're here. Use this shower." You're sending the message that you knew they were coming, and you were glad they were coming. And then I put down use name tags. When I go to farms for the first time, I get introduced to 12, 14, 15, 20 people all at once, right? And then when I get to the G barn or when I get to the farrowing house, do I remember their names? No. But if they've got a name tag that I can just quickly look at, it just makes it so much easier. And then this one's huge. During that onboarding process, make sure they get an understanding of what their expectations are in terms of what do you bring to the company? What are we dependent on you for? What do you need to deliver so that they feel important and they're not just one of the numbers? Continuing, understanding what our culture looks like. And people have got a lot of different definitions for what the word culture means. To me, it's what normal looks like. You can tell me what your vision statement is. You can tell me what your critical care points are. Just let me spend time with your people. I want to see what normal looks like. If you say the care for our people is the most important thing, or the care for the pigs under our control is our most important thing, let me see if I can see the evidence of that. Make sure they understand who you are, of what you do, and of why you do it during those first few days. Paired with your best employee, most of us, the way we learn is we're imitators. Now, some of us read the book. Some of us just do. We think mistakes are just part of the learning process. But most of us, me included, we imitate. We see what the standard of care is. We see what time people show up for work. We see what their attitudes are. And then we're going to replicate that. Pair them up with your best person. If that's the individual that truly represents what your company's culture is, and it's not an individual, it's several, right? Those are the ones that you want to show how we act, what our expectations is, how we care for the pigs. And then during that first week, I really encourage you that someone in senior leadership, someone in this room, makes a contact with that new hire within the first week. And then what I found to be really effective is that individual under company letterhead sends them a letter. How many emails did you get yesterday? Too many? How many texts? How many personal letters did you get? You see the impact of a personal letter? In the United States right now, it's estimated we get one personal letter every 12 weeks. I get mine from my 88-year-old aunt. Now, she texts with my wife right and left, but she sends me, which I already know all the information because Ann tells me the text, but Aunt Marilyn, or Aunt Mimi, as I know her, she still sends me a personal letter. You know what I've got in the top right-hand drawer of my desk at home? Aunt Marilyn's letters. A personal letter is huge. The other thing it does is allows the new hire to show it to the family. This is the vice president of the company sending me this letter welcoming me to the company, and I met her already. Give them a chance to be proud of where they're working. We typically review people on their 30-day mark. Let's give them a chance to review us. This is free information. We think this is what's occurring. Let's let them tell us if that's accurate. Some of the questions I like to ask, is the job what you expected? That's a non-threatening question, right? But I can get input from them. If it's not, I need to find out why. And what do we need to change during those first 30 days or from the 30-day to the 60-day mark? Are you facing any roadblocks? Are you facing any obstacles? Because my expectations of you aren't changing. I don't want obstacles in the way that don't allow you to meet those expectations, and I want to remove them if I can. And then are you getting all the information? Do you have adequate tools? Inadequate tools and materials are one of the top stressors in the workforce. I want to do a good job, but I don't have the materials. I don't have the equipment that I can do a good job. It's one of the bigger stressors that we have. Just ask them, are we doing good on that? And then in your time here, what's the best thing that's happened to you? If they don't have something to tell you, we're in trouble, right? You know what the most common response I get with what's the best thing that's happened to you? It's got to do with relationships that are being built with their coworkers. It's got to do with comments about so-and-so's looking out for me. Such and such helped me with this concept that I didn't fully understand. And it's huge that you can build on that. And then I love this question too. Have you noticed things we can improve? They're the people that are actually doing the work, right? Let's get that input from them in terms of seeing what we can do to improve the situation. And then consider some type of minor acknowledgement. And sometimes it's just saying you're doing a good job. And it's the fact that you noticed that situation. Let's go to the next phase. We've completed onboarding. We're at the situation where how do we grow them into increasing responsibility level? It's not about teaching them to swim. We did that during onboarding. It's about equipping them so they can swim faster, they can swim longer, or they can swim in deeper water, while reminding them they already know how to swim. So it's coaching them up to that next level. And then it requires work. Again, nobody improves by accident. It's not by chance. It's by choice and by work that we're going to improve. I oftentimes ask the question of how do I get the most out of those people, and I think I'm asking the wrong question. I think the question I need to be asking is, how do I create an environment so that people can function at their natural best? Again, my expectation levels aren't going to change in terms of what I want out of the people. Our job is to bring out the very best in our people. And that starts with getting to know our people. And then how can we equip them? And then it's the people that are vital to the job, period, end of statement. But it's also the people that lead the individuals that do the job that are really important. I think that bothers me is I hear people all the time, or I see supervisors say, "How are you doing?" as they're walking right past the employee, right? Don't acknowledge and don't even give them a chance to respond. Again, some of the best leaders have said, if you don't care about the answer, don't ask the question. If you really do want to know how they're doing, stop, look them in the eye, and find out how they're doing, and then respond to that. Every interaction is an opportunity when you have it with an employee, and if you're not being your best self, that's going to impact that relationship. You have the opportunity to move that relationship forward, to stall it out, or to damage it every single time we interact with somebody. And then I think delegation with intention is one of the strongest things that we can do to develop people and to see their potential. If you're determining if someone has leadership capabilities, provide them with some opportunities to show you. Provide them the opportunity to head up a project that involves managing people and see how they do. If you're going to be away from the job, Allow them to take over the supervisory responsibilities that you've got on that short-term basis. See how they do. The best indicator of future performance is past. Of future behavior is past behavior. Give them a chance to show you what they can do, what their potential is. One of my favorite books is called The Culture Code, and I mentioned there's a lot of different definitions as to what does culture mean. Dan Coyle interviewed the absolute highest world-class teams that he could find. Sports teams, military units, medical teams, manufacturing units, and businesses across the spectrum, but these were the best-of-class businesses, best-of-class units, and he wanted to find out what do they have in common. And he wanted to find out what their culture was like. He found out that this group said it's not what we proclaim, it's what we do. It's not what we say our culture is, it's how we live it each day. And he said they were kind of humble even though they were best of class. He said this is just what normal looks like. They said intense active listening was a big part of it. Active listening means we're making eye contact, as I said. It means we're asking follow-up questions. It means we're sharing information also to move the conversation along. The importance of eye contact, it's impossible for me to take the message that you're doing anything other than paying attention to me if you're looking me right in the eye. And little kids get this, right? My son is almost 41. When he was 3 and I would come home from practice, I'd still be in my coveralls. And I'd be visiting with my wife, and my 3-year-old literally would climb up, and I'd just be holding him, and he'd want to talk to me, and I'd be talking to my wife, and here would come his 2 hands, and he'd just move his head, or move my head right to his eyes, right? Because he knew that's what it took to get Dad's attention. Profuse amounts of eye contact are huge. I feel a quiz coming up. I've got one more slide, but that's how important this is to me. And as a teacher for 29 years, I'm big on quizzes, right? Everybody talks to everybody, regardless of rank. Everybody talks to everybody. And the key there is everybody's talking. There's no spectators. But I'm not inhibited to talk to Oliver when Oliver's my boss, because everybody talks to everybody. Handshakes, fist bumps, and shoulder grasps are common. Do you know why that is? When we do fist bumps, when we shake somebody's hand, when we give somebody a hug, it's a release of oxytocin. And oxytocin is worth a lot more than just milk release and uterine contraction. One of the strongest indication of well-beings that we've got, we seek it out. And then laughter and acknowledgement is huge within these groups also. Here comes your quiz. The key to creating culture of world-class teams, is it handshakes, fist bumps, and shoulder grasps that release oxytocin? Is it intense, active listening that results in dialogue? Is it profuse amounts of eye contact when the 3-year-old is grabbing your face and putting your eyes right in his? Or is it all of them? Get out your phones and vote, please. Oh, you just want to answer it? Can we keep going? I'm good. It's all of it. You're right. We good? Kind of gave it away, didn't I? I don't care. I want you guys to grasp that. Let me close with this. This is the single best thing I did in my 29 years of administrative responsibility at the University of Illinois. And it was especially important as I took on more and more responsibilities. 30-minute one-on-one meetings with your direct reports, and before you gasp and say, I don't have 30 minutes to do that, I promise you, if you look at this, this will save you time, because there'll be less phone calls, there'll be less people stopping by your office, there'll be less texts, because once a week or once every other week, they know they've got your undivided attention. It improves communication and understanding. This isn't strictly to update operations. You can have separate meetings for that, but you will update operations, what's going on. But fostering growth and development of your employee is the primary objective of this. It's not about you as the supervisor. It's about developing your people and developing their confidence. 3 questions that you can use during this. How do you feel about last week? Did you accomplish what we talked about the week before or 2 weeks before in terms of what you can get done? What are your top priorities right now? And that's a wonderful question because that's your insight as to, is their focus where it needs to be? Are their priorities in alignment with what your priorities are or what the unit's priorities are? You can really learn a tremendous amount by how they respond to what are your priorities right now? What are your priorities for the upcoming week? And then what guidance and support do you need from me? The one thing you don't do is ever take a project away from them. It's theirs. It stays theirs. You just help them with providing resources. You help them walk through the stuff that may be giving them obstacles. I feel like another quiz coming up right here. I'm a big believer in the 80-20 rule. I spend 80% of my time in these meetings only talking about what has yet to occur because I can't impact what's already occurred. I can learn from what's already occurred, and I know what not to do, or I know what that we want to replicate. But what I want to, what I want to spend 80% of the time on is what is yet to occur because that's what I can impact. I don't want to relitigate stuff that's already happened. 80% of the agenda, remember, this is not about you as a supervisor, it's about your employee. They develop at least 80% of the agenda, and they just send it to you the night before so you know what they want to talk about. And 80% of the talking is done by them, not you. This is about their growth, their development. You ask the appropriate questions, you give the appropriate responses, but they do most of the talking. But the most important one is, I only want to spend time on what I can still impact. Here's your choices. 80% of the time, we discuss what's already occurred. Supervisor speaks 80% of the time. 80% of the time is to discuss what current and future actions are. 80% of the agenda is provided by the supervisor. Or you guys can just shout it out like you did last time. 80% of the time we need to be spending on what we can still impact. Okay. Let me close with these last two. The benefit of this also is from the employee's standpoint. Excellent. When you schedule these meetings, and it goes on the boss's calendar, goes on your calendar, what you're telling the employee is you're as important as everything else on my calendar because you made it to my calendar. You're sending the right signal to them. Now, there's going to be times when these meetings need to be rescheduled because of your schedule. Just don't cancel them. Because if you cancel them, you're sending the message to your direct report that whatever you canceled it for is more important than the time you were going to spend with them. And it very well may be, but you just don't want to send that signal to them, right? Reschedule them. I would have times when I was off doing something like this, and the person that I was supposed to meet with on Tuesday, we just reschedule it for when I got back. And I used an example in the past. Every Tuesday at 10:30, I met with a person named Crystal. Sometimes we had to meet the Monday before because I was gone the entire week before. Do you think she ever turned down the opportunity to meet on Monday and Tuesday? No, because she had my undivided attention during that time. I took notes during these sessions. I think it's really important to tell them you're going to take notes, but then you've got a record of what each of you committed to. You can use that to follow up during the next meeting. And as I mentioned, these will save you time because they don't have the anxiety and the interruptions because they know they're going to meet with you once a week or every other week. The pushback you may get when you want to schedule these with the employees because they're not understanding why the boss wants to meet with them, they may say they don't have the time. If you do adopt these, look at your schedule in 4 weeks, in 5 weeks, in 6 weeks. There'll be time then. I know there's not going to be time the rest of this week or next week. Never more than 30 minutes. The efficiency goes down the drain if you have them more than 30 minutes. You may have to set a timer on your phone because that 30 minutes goes really quickly. And the response is if your employee then says, I didn't get halfway through my agenda, it's, we'll pick that up then next time we meet. They get really efficient at knowing how long that 30 minutes is, but they may say, why does the boss want to meet with me? Make it clear, it's not checking in on them. It's them having the opportunity to meet with you and what the specific objectives are. And then 30 minutes is either too long or not long enough. I had one person that 30 minutes just wasn't long enough for her, and so we decreased the frequency, but when we met for an hour, and she felt heard when we did it for an hour, but it didn't involve any more time on my schedule. I can give you resources. I'm going to be here. I'd love to talk to you about any stuff that I've talked about that you want clarification on. I'll just close with saying if you want more information, those are the things that I've got prepared. Thank you.